Okay. Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. Good players. Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. We are on, we will, Bezos Hashem, be starting Daf Mem Chesem at Beis, 48b. We're really starting on the bottom of Mem Chesem at Aleph, 48a. Yeah. So we're really in the bottom of Mem Chesem at Aleph by the Mishnah, the last line, 48a. Okay. So we're going to start with the story. Bezos Hashem. Following story from Moshe Greenstein, I think his name is. I wrote it down correctly. Okay. It's a story from Moshe Greenstein. He says the following story. This is from one of Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein's books. I don't know which one. Silberstein. Oh. You can write your book still. All right. Okay. Okay. There's a fellow in Tiberia by the name of Shmuel Cohen Friedman. What's his name? And he dedicated a Sefer Torah to the shul, which was called Klal Chesed. And the reason he donated a memory of someone called Pinchas Naphtali. Pinchas Naphtali. I don't know the last name, just Pinchas Naphtali. So what is the story behind the Sefer Torah? The story comes of the Sefer Torah. Why did this Shmuel Cohen Friedman? Thank you. Morning. Good morning. So why did this Pinchas HaKohen Friedman donate a Sefer Torah in Tiberia in memory of Pinchas Naphtali? So he explained the following reason. There was a fellow who was in the Holocaust. Pinchas Naphtali was in the Holocaust. A lot of people were in the Holocaust, yes. Better part of Europe. Jewry, unfortunately. And he was in one of the camps. As many people were in the camps, he was absolutely starving and he was having trouble surviving with the lack of provisions. So he made a decision, right or wrong. He was going to sneak into the kitchen and steal some food. Steal. Yeah, take. What's literally his? Take. Steal. Right. Yeah. Well, so he took the food. He took the food and he got caught. That was his mistake. Not taking the food. The mistake was that he got caught. So the Nazis were not particularly kind, to say the least. So they ordered a firing squad for him. They put him against the wall. No last wish. Just the firing squad was ready to go. When is about to shoot, Pinchas Naphtali screams out, "Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad," a good Jew. And the officer in charge says, "Hold your fire. Hold your fire. This is not good. This is not in his praise. Don't worry." He says to the Jew, "This isn't good enough for you." So he says, "In fact, we're going to have to give you a personal death." So pardon me for being graphic, but he physically took him and he took his stick or club, wherever he had, and he started beating him to death. And he nearly did. He beat him beyond recognition. This club was laying there in a pool of blood, brain injury, you name it. What he was injured beyond imagination, but for somehow he survived. And he survived, only in body, not in mind, and not in spirit. After that, he was completely broken. He barely talked. He was basically incapable of caring for himself. But that's what happened. After the war, surprisingly, he survived. As I mentioned, only in body, not in spirit or mind. He was completely broken and was unable to really effectively communicate or anything, or even to have a normal life. He had a sister who survived the war too. She took her with her to Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, they put him in an institution. This is in the late 40s. They put him in an institution. He was a young man at the time. And this wasn't like, Israel, United States, UK of the last couple of decades where you can have some rights. The only demand she could make from them was that when it's time to go, we want him to have a Jewish burial. So time came many, many, many decades later. The Amsterdam institution, to their credit, they called the local Chevra Kadisha, the local Jewish Burial Society, by the name of uh, Shlomo or Shlomo Berger. I'm sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. I think it was Shlomo Berger. He was in charge of the burial society, the Knebra Kadisha. And they took him and they gave him a proper tahara, and they're going to give him a proper burial. And they were taking him, Levaya, to the burial. They're accompanying to the burial. They noticed there was obviously some Jews from the community who were kind enough to accompany him. And there was one non-Jewish woman there, a little bit unusual. So Rabbi Berger, the head of the Chevra Kadisha, asked this woman, um, speaks to her a little bit. Says, "Yeah, I'm here. I want to say a few words, if you don't mind." I knew him. She said, "Okay, say a few words, no problem." She said a few words. He says, "I want to say that for the last 30 years, I worked in this institution, and I cared for him. I took care of him, and every day, twice a day, he would say the Shema Yisrael." He said, I was very impressed with that every day." So the funeral happens, and afterwards, Rabbi Berger goes over to her and says, "How do you know about Shema Yisrael? This is not a religious woman on any connections to the Jewish community." He says, "Well, this Pinchas Naphtali, um, I cared for him for 30 years. I worked there in the institution, and I cared for him for the last 30 years. And he didn't talk to anyone. He barely did anything, barely communicated. He was a broken person beyond imagination. The only thing we do, morning and night, he would like come to and say this Shema Yisrael every day. That was his only interaction with anybody. With with the God, God. That's every day, twice a day. That was his interaction." He said, "And only that, I only worked here for 30 years. They tell me he was there in the institution for 70 years. And for 70 years, he didn't talk to anyone, didn't do anything, but morning and night, once in the morning and once at night, he would say Shema Yisrael, say the Shema every day, morning and night." Now, that's the story of Pinchas Naphtali. And that's why this Shmuel Cohen Friedman wanted to donate a Sefer Torah in his memory. It's a very nice story. It's about the neshama of a Jew. It's a very impressive story. But I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it. How many times did Pinchas Naphtali die al Kiddush Hashem? How many times did he die al Kiddush Hashem? He never died al Kiddush Hashem, really, because he lived, right? But he died al Kiddush Hashem the first time that he was ready to be shot. He shot Shema Yisrael. This evil German decided it wasn't good enough. He had a better Kiddush Hashem planned for him, and he left him in a pool of blood for dead. And he's supposed to die. The chances of survival were nil, and he did survive. So he died al Kiddush Hashem a second time, essentially, though he's alive. The Gemara says there are certain people who are choshev kimes, they're considered like dead. Their life is not functional to the sense that they really have a life. Ani, a person who's extremely impoverished, it's no life. Person is a summa, is blind, he doesn't have a real life. I'd say, in my humble opinion, that someone who is so incapacitated, like Pinchas Naphtali, probably was considered like a mace to a certain level. In the Gemara sense, his life is no life. In that sense, you could probably make a case that he died al Hashem every day. You could probably make that case that because he was in a state of quasi not living. But the one thing he wanted to do in his life, in that state of near death, if you will, was to scream out Shema Yisrael. You could make a case that you could say that he sort of was Mekadosh in Shema every day. You could say that. Rabbi Akiva waited his whole life to die al Hashem, and finally did. He was full of joy. So this is pretty impressive what this person did. That he died certainly twice, perhaps even more. He dedicated his life to Hashem. Whatever he had, Bechol Meodecha is Bechol Memocha, but it also means Bechol Mida Shemodin. It means, like, in a certain sense, it's in a certain sense, not the classical interpretation of the word, but in every ounce of his being, it's all he had. He gave to Hashem. So. Sometimes we hear these stories and say, how could I ever live up to such a great person? We don't have to. I personally could never do such a thing. But this Pinchas Naphtali did something. He died many times al Kiddush Hashem. And we have to do our job of living al Kiddush Hashem. And Mirz Hashem, we should be inspired by such people. And if we can't reach their level, but be inspired to understand how great a person is capable of becoming. Mirz Hashem. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I did not do this one yet. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sorry, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think I did not do this story. I'm sorry. I just have to mark the stories down so I don't tell them twice. Okay, now let's get on to the Gemara, the Mishnah to be exact. We're in the bottom of Daf Mem Ches Amud Aleph. That's where we left off. We started the Mishnah, but we're going to do it right now. Bezrat Hashem. Okay. Bottom of Daf Mem Ches Amud Aleph. Page. Okay. Let's do the Mishnah. La'olam. Interesting terminology. La'olam, like forever, always. We'll discuss that. Ki b'reshus ha'av. This girl, before she gets married, she's in reshus ha'av, like a nara. She's in Bas Yisrael. We'll discuss detail later what that means. We have to see the Rashi gives a little hint, but we're going to discuss it when we get to the Gemara. La'olam hi b'reshus ha'av ashadikanes. She is always in her father's reshus. In other words, he has all the benefits from her. For example, he gets her wages, etc. Hashadikanes reshus ha'baal. Until she's transferred, so to speak, so she gets married. We'll talk about how that transfer takes place. To the reshus habal, husband. Yeah, till you get to the husband's domain. Thank you. There you go. That's a strange way to put it. Domain till his dominionship. I don't know. His husbandship, whatever the word is. For nisuin. For marriage. And once she's by the father, and then when she has nisuin, she becomes fully the new husband. She wasn't in Erisin already. Even though she was in Erisin already, she doesn't really become her earnings, for example, or other rights don't get transferred over to the new husband until nisuin. Tosos, as he says, Tos has the girsa lechuppah. It's transferred by chuppah. Chuppah is the way that we do nisuin, basically, what we call chuppah. There are other ways. We discussed this before that we do, yichud, dekin, other things. But till the nisuin happens, the second stage happens of marriage, the wife is still, this girl is, even though she had erisin, she's still essentially in the father's domain for certain things in terms of financial rights, etc. So when does that change? When they have nisuin, when they have the chuppah, when they have the second part of the marriage. But what if other things happen? Masara av l'shluchei abal. What happens if the father sort of transfers her over to the shluchei abal? The husband sends messengers that they go and they sort of pick her up as his behalf for nisuin, the second stage. Masara av l'shluchei abal. The father hands her over to the messengers of the husband. Then she is in the domain, like that word, I guess, of the husband. However, the father goes with the messengers of the husband. In other words, he's not transferring ownership, so to speak, or rights of her yet. Let me read that again. Sorry. If the father goes with the messengers of the husband, or the father's messengers go with the messengers of the husband, so the transfer, the handoff, as they say, has not taken place, she still remains in her father's domain in terms of like a regular rusa. She hasn't become transferred yet in terms of rights, etc. Masru shluchei av l'shluchei abal. Once the messengers of the father hand her over to the messengers of the husband, harei b'shus habal. Then she becomes in the domain of the husband. Okay.
I don't quite understand that because Nisuin leads to chuppah, the chuppah leads to yochid, and then they're together. Where do the agents come in?
Right. So we're gonna discuss that now in the Gemara. How to what extent is this a handoff? They're handing over from one to the other. From the Mishnah so far, it seems just like on a simple level, it seems like it's just in terms of the financial rights get transferred. We're going to see. The Gemara is going to be many opinions.
It's a football game.
It's American football.
Handoff.
Yeah, American football game. And you can use your hands, not in on the what the rest of the world calls football. Only use your feet. Right.
And what are they saying? After the khutbah, she goes back to the house and then they're escorted to the husband.
No. She's in the after Eris in the first stage. She's living at with her father still. And when does she? There's certain things, right? I'm just reading the simple interpretation of Mishnah, but we'll see the other things. She gets Eris in. She gets moved over to Nisuin to in terms of financial rights. That's a simple interpretation. There's going to be more levels to it when they move her over. Okay. So the Gemara asks, "My la'olam," what does that mean? She's always in her father's domain until she moves over to the husband's domain. So the Gemara says, this would require a little bit of explanation. We'll read it first. My la'olam la'fuke mi mishnah rishona, to exclude the opinion of, not the opinion, the psak, the ruling of the original Mishnah. Because there's an original way that things were done in Klal Yisrael, and that reflects a Mishnah, but that was an earlier Mishnah. It's not earlier, and chronologically it was earlier. This Mishnah that we have reflects the later ruling of that we had in terms of this type of situation. The Tanan, it says, as we learned over there, this is the Mishnah. Where is that? It's later on in Zion. It says as follows: Higia zman v'lo nisu. After they agree to the erisin, the woman is given he is given rather 12 months to prepare for the wedding, or if she's an almana, like 3 months. Sorry, 1 month, 30 days. There's 3 in there, I know. 30 days, 1 month, and that's the time they have to prepare. If he does not, for whatever reason, does not have everything together, we understand that. However, he has to provide for her. If he does not, higiyazman v'lo nisu, if the a set time that they had, let's say 12 months in basula, and he's not ready for the marriage, ocheles mishalo v'ocheles betruma. He has to provide food for her now. He agreed to marry her, so he has to provide some of the provide food for her. But more importantly, we want to focus on is v'ocheles betruma. If he is a Kohen, and she is not a Kohen, not a Bas Kohen. So Min Torah, really, according to the Torah, an Arusa, once she has the first stage of marriage to a Kohen, she could eat Truma. But Chazal said that, made an enactment that she does not. There's 2 reasons given why, what the Gemara says. One reason is because maybe if she's eating Truma that only a Kohen can eat in her father's house, the father may give it to the brothers and the father, people who can't eat it. And Zar Sha'achol Truma is Chai Misa B'dei Shamayim. Non-Kohen who eats Truma is liable for heavenly death. Not something we want to take lightly. So that's one reason. The other reason is because at this stage in the marriage, the Erison, technically, until she gets married, he could say there could technically be what's called a mechach tos, like a false sale, so to speak. He can get married to her and find some sort of unknown blemish of significance that he says, if I knew this, I wouldn't have gotten married in the first place. If it's, we'll discuss maybe a little bit more, I believe it. He sees that, then that would sort of retroactively annul the marriage, because he was a sort of a false pretense, false sale, so to speak. In which case, she was eating truma when she wasn't really married to the Kohen. So therefore, to avoid that, the Chazal, the rabbis, made an enactment that when she's in Arusa, just the first stage, she doesn't eat truma, even though she's married. The first stage of marriage to a Kohen, she has to wait to the second stage. Once they do Nisuin and they've been together, they had intercourse, he's seen her, nothing to hide anymore. And then and so no turning back, so to speak. It's a full marriage, and then she could eat truma. However, it used to be the Mishnah Rishona was that's true, that rabbinic enactment, that Takana Sachamim was true up until the 12 months. If you gave her 12 months, they gave him to put together the wedding, his things that he needs, and he wasn't ready, so then Chazal say, then she could eat the truma. Since it's only rabbinic in nature, but so they allowed it. We'll discuss this more when we get there. In I don't know how, a month or so, about maybe less than a month, 3 weeks, a month. But that's the announcement. The original Mishnah, the Mishnah Rishona, was that after 12 months, if this Kohen has not gotten it together, then she could eat the truma, like the real Torah law. But our Mishnah says no. La'olam means she's always in her husband's domain, even for truma, even if he's not I'm sorry, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's only in her father's domain, not in the husband, the Cohen's domain, correct? Thank you. Even if 12 months have passed and he hasn't started, they got the marriage together, the wedding together, then the up-to-date ruling of the Chachamim was no. Even in that case, she still remains in her father's domain for truma. She is not able to eat truma, even in that case. That's what the new rule. That's what it means la'olam. La'olam to teach you, even though the old ruling was she could eat truma in such a situation, here she can't eat truma. La'olam, she always remains in her husband's domain. So let me read that again. So that was a little bit of a mouthful. My la'olam, what's la'olam? Afukim in Mishnah Rishona, to exclude the original Mishnah, the Tnan, which learned in that Mishnah, later on the Masechta. Yigia Zman v'lo nisu, the 12 months, for example, passed and he didn't get married yet. Ochlus mishalov, ochlus truma. Then she could even eat truma if he's a Kohen. Kamash malan, our Mishnah is coming to tell you, no la'olam. Even in that circumstance, she remains in her father's domain and can't eat the truma yet. That's what the la'olam means. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to discuss what Alan discussed. To what extent they give it over to they give the girl over to the agents, the shluchim of the husband. What does that create? Like, how extensive is that? Is she completely married? Is that everything? I'm not married, but is she all the rights? She's like a real nesua now. Everything becomes like that just by handing her over from Erisin by her father's house to Nesuin in her husband's house, just by handing him over to the husband's shluchim. So we're going to discuss that. So quotes from the Mishnah: Masar av l'shluchei abal harei b'rishus abal. Hands him over to the messengers of the husband. She's within the domain of the husband. So what does that mean? So Amarav misirasa l'chol. She's handed over to the full extent, all the rights and benefits of the husband and obligations. Chutz mitruma, except for truma, like we just said. Once they do this mesira, the handoff, the handing over of the wife from the husband's house, from the father's house, the husband's shluchim, she has all the rights. The husband has all the obligations, and she has the rights, except for truma. She can't eat truma yet until she's actually had chuppah. That's what Rav says. Ravasi Omer afla truma. No, Ravasi says everything. Once they hand it off, when she's given over, she's transferred to the shluchim of the Baal, to the messengers of the husband, even for truma, she could eat before the chuppah. So Mara is going to ask a question immediately from what I just said before. Eisvi Rav Huna Ravasi. Rav Huna asked a question to Ravasi. V'amri la, some say who asked it, it was Chia Barav Ravasi. Chia Barav asked Ravasi, La'olam. It says in our Mishnah, we just learned a few lines before, La'olam hi rishus ha'av ashit tikanes l'chuppah. So she's always in the father's domain until she has chuppah, which means truma. She does not allowed to eat truma until she gets transferred over to chuppah mamish, not just handed over to the messengers. How could he asks, whichever opinion it is, either Rav Huna or Rav Chia or Rav, is asking on Ravasi, how could you say even for truma, that's enough? We learned before it has to be a chuppah. It has to be real nesuah, real chuppah to hand over. So what does he say? Amr lahu Rav. So Rav says, Lav aminu lahu. Didn't I say to you, lo tizlu basar ifcha. Don't go to one side. Don't interpret like a mishnah, something that can be interpreted two ways. Yachal l'shanuye lahu. I'm sorry. Yachal l'shanuye lahu. Misirasa zuhi knisasa l'chuppah. I could say it, I can learn it, that what it means, misirasa, when the father gives her over to the agents, the shluchim of the husband, that's like the equivalent to the full extent of like going to a chuppah. So even though we said in the Mishnah, la'olam, that she remains in her father's house until she had chuppah, that's true. But this case, handing over, according to Ravasi, handing her over to the messengers of the father is equivalent to chuppah. It's the same level of obligations as if you had a chuppah. And then she has all the rights and obligations. She could eat truma if her husband's a Kohen. He's obligated in her food and all that stuff.
So in the days of yore, we talk about agents taking the girl to the chuppah as opposed to the father.
It could be either way, but yeah, I guess that was a practice of some sort.
Yeah.
They talk about that somewhere in the Masechta. I remember the last time I learned it. Is some sort of we learned also that how they, if you, one of the ways you can remember if she was a psula or not, as a procession that when she went from her father's house to the husband's house, what she was wearing, how her hair was, there was something involved there, some sort of procession usually.
The real litmus test would be that if she is the Bas Kohen, and now you don't have the chashash that she'll bring Truma back to her father's house, and we'll share it now with the brothers.
Right.
So if she's a Bas Kohen, can she partake?
She's already a Bas Kohen.
She's already, but she's Bas Kohen.
No, she's a Bas Kohen marrying a Kohen.
That's why marrying a Kohen.
So then she's good. She can do.
There would be no issue there.
Right, then yeah. Kohanim did apparently marry Kohanim often, so yeah, that would solve the problem. Yeah.
Right, but that shows you what the real nature of that relationship is.
Right.
Because there's no external circumstances, preventing her from eating the
truma. Right, correct. According to Ravasi, she still can, yeah. But according to Rav, not. Now we have some more opinions, just in case you now some more opinions, perhaps limited opinions, some more larger opinions as well. Just highlight it properly. Ushmuel Amar. She said, I forgot that. Okay. Ushmuel Amar. Shmuel says about a third of the way down. First on the line is he. Ushmuel Amar liushasa. What does it mean that she gets handed over? She gets moved over when the father gives her over to the shluchim of the Baal. What does it mean she's handed over? Only means for Yerusha. What does that mean? That means if she's handed over to the husband's messengers, the only thing that happens is that if from the time he's handed over, let's say he lives in a distant place, until they get there, if she passes away, then the husband would inherit the nedunya, the dowry part that he would get. That's the one thing that this does. That's the only thing that changes, says according to Shmuel. It's very, very limited. Avasi said it's very inclusive. Rav says it's almost all inclusive, except for Truma. Shmuel says it's very limited. This handing over is not like real chuppah. It just gives the dowry rights. If he hands him over, and then if the woman dies along the way, in such an event, he would have the dowry rights. Reish Lakish Amar l'ksuvasa. Reish Lakish says once he hands it over, she has the right to ksuva. So we'll discuss what that means exactly. Especially, let's get into the machlokas. We'll just leave it like that. Ksuvasa, Ksuvasa for ksuva. Ksuvasa mahi. What does it mean, her ksuva? Di mesa yarisla. Read that again. Ksuva mahi. Di mesa yarisla. Hainu de Shmuel. That if he what's the ksuva mean? That if she dies along the way after she's handed over to the messengers, he gets the dowry. That's exactly what Shmuel said. That can't be what the opinion of Reish Lakish. So what is the opinion of Reish Lakish? So Amravina lomar ksuvasa me'acher mana. Amravina lomar ksuvasa me'acher mana. What does it mean? It means ksuva means that if afterwards this happens and she gets remarried a second time, in other words, after this she gets handed over to the Baal, and then whatever happens, divorce or someone pass away before the actual chuppah, even that makes her into a woman who only gets a 100 for a ksuba. That act of handing over is enough to make her a woman who now gets 100. For the handing over to this husband obviously gets 200. But if at some point it just stops there, handed over, and then let's say the husband passes away or they get divorced or something, then if she gets remarried, she only gets 100, even though she's basically
physical condition.
Right. So we mentioned before that even if she just has chuppah without the bia, that would downgrade her in terms of her. But this is more of a chiddush according to Reish Lakish. Even she just was handed over to the
Because a lower value puts it back.
correct.
Yeah, the advantage to marrying a virgin.
Yes, it's a bargain. Yeah, that's fire sale. I don't know what I'm gonna call it.
See,
But it sounds like to me.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, yeah.
the Nara
Yeah.
is in the under the control of her father until she's married.
Yeah, the domain, or
Yeah,
it's a better word.
Until being married means chuppah.
Right.
But once she's handed over to the agent, she's not married. She's just in the agent's hands. So therefore, she's still under the control of her father until she gets married.
No,
So
she's
why
married. That's the whole thing.
Well,
She's had the whole thing.
it depends.
He just handed over to the agents of her future husband.
That's right. She's not married though. She's in the
No, but she's in the possession of the husband.
yeah.
That's
It's in between.
You're both right.
But it's not married. She's not married.
She's not
Why would
married.
you inherit everything.
Because
She's not married.
there's a certain degree of handing over. It's a quasi state.
Yeah.
It's a quasi state. That's right. We're going to talk about what happens in this quasi state. Could you go back from this quasi state? We're going to talk about Mezes Shem on Sunday. It's a very unusual state. If once you have chuppah, the truth is even chuppah has certain aspects to it. You haven't, don't they've been together, had intercourse, cohabited, and it's different. And it's a fully married. It's a funny state. And the question is, what happens in this funny state? Rav Asi says he's practically married. Rav says almost practically married. Shmuel and Rish Lakish say practically not married. But there's something there. She's definitely not fully married. But it's a strange state of limbo that she's in. How is it? Normally, the way we do it, we don't come into these problems. Thank God. From the Eris into the Suin is, I don't know, a couple of minutes. And so if they put someone to speak in between, it could be 15. But if it's like reading the Ksuba, you especially get, they get some tried and true, a Rav who's read it 100 times, they can do it in 2 minutes. And they're not really reading, they're just memory. But so it can be very, very quick. But that's where these problems come in. Okay, so we have all these different opinions here. And different opinions about what's her status in this particular state. So now we're going to ask a question. The Gemara is going to ask a question from the following. Meisvei ask a question from the following brisa. Sorry. Meisvei. It's about halfway down. The first one, first word in the line is litruma. Okay, Meisvei, second word in. Meisvei, halach. Excuse me. Is that Tosefta? No, it's not Tosefta. Oh, is it Tosefta? It's a Tosefta. Huh?
Rabbi Yochanan?
Oh, no, right before that.
Oh.
Did I skip someone? You're right. I'm sorry. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Save the day. And we'll skip that opinion. Thank you. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina, Damitarvayu, Misirasa, Lakol, Afla Truma. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina say that when they give her over, they hand her over, she's fully handed over, not full marriage, but all the rights, even Truma, go along with it. Like that's opinion of Asi. So we have various opinions. Rav Asi, Rav Chanina, Rav Yochanan, almost like all the rights. Rav says all the rights except for Truma. Shmuel says only for the dowry. And Reish Lakish says that if she gets remarried, the ksuva becomes 100. But what we're going to have this brisa, this Tosefta here, that's going to be like Shmuel. It's going to bring a question on all the opinions. So Meisvi, I'll ask you a question from the following brisa, Tosefta. Halacha avim shluchei abal. If the father goes, she's as an arusa, and she's going to become an asua. So halacha avim shluchei abal. The father goes with the messengers of the husband. Or if the messengers of the father go with the messengers of the father, of the husband, this is what we learned so far. Now we're going to add something in new. Or if she owns property, a courtyard, some sort of place, bederach along the way, and they go as the whole party goes there to dwell overnight, to go stay overnight. Not like as a cheder yichud or something. There's no sort of like going into the husband's domain. It's just everyone goes there to rest for the night. Afal pishek suvasa bebeis bala, even though the dowry stuff was already transferred over to the husband's house, it's sitting there, not ownership, but it's sitting there. Mesa, if she dies, the girl, avia yarsha, the father still inherits all the dowry because she didn't make the move, so to speak, from Eris into Nisun. Okay? Masara Av,
He accompanied
right,
the shulchan of the Baal.
right. She was never handed over.
Sort of like not a full, turnover of her to the Baal.
Right. The transfer didn't occur yet. Yeah, exactly. Right. Sorry, I'm zooming. Okay. Next, Masara Av l'shluchei Abal. If the father gives her over to the messengers of the husband, Masru shluchei Av l'shluchei Abal, or the messengers of the father give her over to the messengers of the husband, or Shahaisa lo chatzer b'derech, and he has some sort of courtyard, some sort of dwelling place along the way. V'nichnasa imo l'shum nisuin, and she dwells there in his place. Not that they consummated, they just designated a place that they would be there, and that would be for nisuin. Afal b'shak suva b'beis avia, even though the dowry is still in the father's house, Mesav, she dies, bala yarsha. Then the husband inherits it, gets it. So what do we say? So in this case we just mentioned, when the father hands her over, or hands her over to the messengers, or they designate a place for them to have an asuin in his property, what do we say? How much has he transferred over? To what extent does she now become the new husband? They haven't had chuppah yet. They haven't had a real merit, nisuin yet. The medva varmamurim lirushasa. That's only in terms of acquiring the dowry of ala truma, but for truma and for other things as well. Ein isha ochelas betruma acha dikanes lachuppah. No, you need a real chuppah for her to get truma and other things as well. And the only thing that the transfer accomplishes is that she can get, if she dies along the way, God forbid, then the husband would acquire the truma. That's the only thing the transfer accomplishes. Mara says, tiyufta dekula tiyufta. That's a contradiction to everyone except for Shmuel. It's a contradiction. It's indeed a contradiction. It seems from this we learned so far, the opinion of Shmuel is what we hold like, at least based on that opinion there.
But the house that she stopped in is her house,
The first case was her house,
not his house.
not his house. The second case is his house.
So the first case, she's still under the father.
Right.
It's her house.
Right.
But the second one, she's under the husband's house.
Right. Not a house like chuppah. It sounds like chuppah a lot.
Yeah.
One of the shitas of chuppah is when they go home, they go to his ownership of the house. So that does sound like chuppah a lot.
So what is when they bring in Chatzer, what is that telling? What is that teaching?
Even a chutzner could be a place that she goes to the husband's domain and he takes ownership of her. That's transferred to her to some extent, not like a chuppah.
But isn't that equivalent to the Shluchei Abal?
It is a equivalent of shluchei.
Shluchei Abal, without the father's accompaniment.
Yes, it'd be the same. If it's his
Should be
property.
the same as the Chatzer.
Yes. The second case is like that. The first case is her chutzner. The second case is his chutzner. His chutzner is the same as handing over. Exactly. To transfer. So now the Gemara is going to analyze this. So its opinion of Shmuel seems to be the case so far, that the transfer only accomplishes that.
That's interesting, but it seems here that the custom in those days is that the bride went to the Khatan. Right? Because the custom now, except for sure in the Ashkenaz community, is that the husband comes to the bride.
Under the chuppah. Right.
In Sfardi,
No. No.
Wait.
usually the
No, the
chassan
chassan goes
the
first.
chassan is under the chuppah, and the Papa walks around down,
Yeah.
and
Right,
that's
right.
it.
Why can't it be under the chuppah? He goes to her first.
Badakin?
Make sure it's the right person.
By the badakin you're talking about?
The decking.
That he does.
Where is the chuppah? Chuppah is in the town of the bride.
Oh.
Khatan goes. We're talking about children here. But the
Gotcha.
Khatan goes to the town of the bride. The bride doesn't move to the Khatan.
Right.
Until when I got married, right, the custom in my shul
Right.
was that the chuppah and the marriage was where the Khatan was.
Okay.
Right? I know my late father-in-law was very upset, and I said, I am in home. My in-laws lived in Manchester and I'm in London. And I said, no, according to our custom, the chuppah's in my shul, and you're going to make the wedding in London, not Manchester.
Why?
But I understand now when my children got married,
You still talk to them?
Right? I mean, my first two boys got married. They married girls from Manchester.
Uh-huh.
Right? The chuppah, right? And the shul was in Manchester. So the custom, we somehow we got dragged into the Ashkenazi custom and Sephardi custom, which is what's in the Gemara. Got lost. That's what I'm just commenting.
Okay, I hear that. I hear that. The reason I heard that the reason why the chassan in the chuppah that we have, the chassan goes first to the chuppah, is because it becomes like his domain. It's his domain, so to speak. He's establishing rights. I don't know how that works.
That's right, he's coming to his domain.
There's a lot of different minhagim. We try to accomplish all of them.
But they have put a talus over the, right?
It's also like
So
chuppah.
that's also very
It's also like chuppah. Yeah.
demonstrative act of domain.
Yeah. But we don't make hakafut. Color doesn't make hakafut.
Oh, no?
And there's no yichud.
No, you could.
No, you.
And straight from the chuppah, they go and dance.
Really?
Is it, the Sephardim don't do that?
God, no.
Is the
There's a
Rambam?
few chuppahs here.
Because the Sephardim hold that
Yeah.
the
And in
Rambam.
France.
The Rambam holds that what is chuppah? It's yichud l'shem roy labia. So it's the yichud that could technically, in theory, long enough that they could have intercourse. That's the Rambam shita. That's how it's done. And it's interesting. The Sephardim don't do that.
Up to half an
Oh, I
hour.
know that. Okay,
20 minutes.
okay, interesting. Okay,
In France and here.
ah,
Where,
save time.
yeah. You don't platz around for the Chatan and Kala
Right.
to come.
That's what the first course is for, right?
It's like the chuppah is
But the
inside.
whole yichud it demonstrates marriage.
Yeah, but we don't hold with that. If the temple's talit over his collar, right? He's required it.
Yeah.
So that's.
That's sufficient.
We don't know because there's a lot of different opinions what a chuppah is. So we do all of them. Do all of them.
Inside the hall, right? You start dancing. The
Right.
collar goes to the gate side, the man goes there, you start dancing,
Right.
right? And then you sit down and have the
They don't hold hands?
Huh?
They don't
So-
hold hands?
I didn't notice that.
But then you could,
I'm trying to remember the weddings I've been to. Maybe they did, maybe they
Hasidim,
didn't.
The very
Hasidim hold hands. And they, after the chuppah, they come down. Which are the Hasidic weddings.
Right.
I was surprised, President Kala holding hands.
yeah, it's very unusual.
well, they're allowed to.
That we know, but
I don't know.
That's other things.
unexpected. Okay, so let's continue. We're about 2/3 way down. The last word on the line is, I'm sorry, the first word on the line is lachupa. You go across. It's like right above where Tosfos Vishmuel is. Just go across there. It says hagufa. Hagufa kasha. We're going to analyze this question from the brisa we just said. Yeah, he goes to his courtyard, to her courtyard. Hagufa kasha. Amrit nichnasa imo lolin. You say if they go with her to dwell in her courtyard, then it doesn't act as a transfer. Taima de lolin. Sounds like the reason there's no transfer because their intentions, they actively intended to just go there to dwell overnight without any, implications of transfer or transferring. Hastama, that implies if they just went stam to the courtyard, Hashem Nisuin. If you didn't intentionally have in mind that I'm not making Nisuin here, then it would be Nisuin. Hastama, if you just didn't have any intention, now it sounds like it's for Nisuin. Ima Seifa, the Seifa says, let's take a look at the Seifa. Nichnasa imo l'shem Nisuin. If she goes to him in his courtyard, l'shem Nisuin, for the sake of Nisuin. That implies that you have to have for intentions for it to count as Nisuin. Hastama, if you didn't have intentions, l'lin, then it's not for Nisuin. Sort of contradictory implications of the brisa. On one hand the first part implies if you just had stam, weren't thinking what you're doing, then automatically the courtyard would make her like Nisuin. The second part of the brisa implies, no, you have to have intention that this counts for Nisuin. If you don't, then it doesn't count. So which one is it? So Amar Ravashi, stami katani. No. It's telling us that what's the nature of stam, if you didn't have any particular intention. Stam chotzer dida lalin. That stam, that if you just go into her chotzer without any particular intention, then her courtyard is just lalin. It's just to dwell there overnight because you need a place to stay. Stam chotzer didei, I just ran the stam intent, the assumption by his property, his chotzer, is a Nesuin. That's the without any intentions. You go to his courtyard, then we assume that it's like a transfer because you're going to his property along the way, and it would transfer. That's what the way it would work. Okay. So far we had some. We're going to continue with the discussion now. Okay. I'm going to continue with the discussion about the handoff. This transfer of ownership. What happens along the way in this quasi state?
They're only employing the suing. It's just an implication, nothing more.
Right. It's not fullness to it. Right. It's
Him in one side of the house, her on the other side of the house.
right.
Implication is the suing.
Right. It's
That's all.
in his property, like a chuppah or like
Yeah.
no, I shouldn't say it. The chuppah means full chuppah. It's like a transfer. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Tana. It's about near the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines up. Tana. Second word on the line. First word on the line is on the Suan. Tana. Masara av l'shluchei abal. Same idea. The father hands her over to the husband's messengers. There was a transfer. Vizinsa. Before they have the chuppah, she is unfaithful and has an illicit relationship with someone else. She commits adultery. Harei zu bechenek. She gets chenek. She gets the strangulation. She doesn't get skila. Remember, skila is only for a nara who's an arusa, the sula. It has to have been a real arusa. This transfers you out of erisin. It may not make you full nesuin, the handoff, the transfer, but it takes her out of erisin. This gives us a little bit of better picture. What is it? It's not erisin anymore. That's for sure. So it's erisin. She would get skila. She'd be stoned for this act. Instead, she gets chenek. She gets strangulation, which is for a woman who's a nesua. It's enough to transfer out of erisin that she doesn't get skila. So the Gemara asks, Minani Mili. From where do we know this from? Amrav Ami Barchama Amar Kra. Ami Barchama says it's from the pasuk. The pasuk says by a girl in erisin who was not faithful, she committed adultery. Liznos beis avia, to commit adultery in the house of her father. What does that mean? In the house of her father, what is that coming to tell you? Prat excluding a case of when it's handed over to the messengers of the husband. What does that mean? When she liznos beis avia, she gets skila. When she commits adultery in her father's house, then she gets stoning. But what is that coming to exclude? It's excluding when it moves beyond that, moves beyond her father's house, even a little bit, which is when she was handed over to the messengers. When she's handed over to the agents, the shluchim, then she's no longer in her father's house. She's no longer harusa, and she would not get skila. She gets chenek. Maybe it was a further stage that this is talking about. Maybe it's talking about not the stage that's close to erisin, a stage that's closer to full nesuin. What's that? The stage closest to nesuin is chuppah and oliva. They had the chuppah, but they didn't consummate the marriage. They didn't cohabit yet, and have intercourse. So maybe that's what it's in. In that case, she gets that's far enough along the process to get the other death penalty. So Amarava, Amarli Ami said to me, chuppah behed yaksiva. No, we don't need this pasuk before to teach you chuppah. We already know from somewhere else. That pasuk, liznos beis avia, tells you if she committed adultery after she was handed off an erisin to the husband's messengers, she would get chenek, she would get strangulation. That from once she's had chuppah but not had bia yet, and an intercourse, that she would also get chenek, but we know that from somewhere else already. That's an open pasuk, as it's written. Behed yaksiva, it's a pasuk in Dvarim. Ki yeh nara basula mu'ursa le'ish. It says when you have a nara who's a basula, virgin, mu'ursa, who has erisin to a man, and she commits adultery, that's the rest of the pasuk. So what is it telling us? What is each word teaching us? Nara, basula, mu'ursa, very specific. Nara, to get skila, in that case, she has to be a nara, 12 to 12 and a half, a low bulgara, so not above 12 and a half. Basula, she has to be basula before this act, below bula, not that she had intercourse before. Mu'ursa, below nesua, she has to have erisin and not full nesuin yet. So my nesua, what does that mean? She's a nesua. She's married, right? Elaim Nesua Mamish, and it's like a full Nesuin completely, which means she already had Bia intercourse. Hainu Basula Balabula. We already said that. She's Basula and not a Bula. We already checked that off. It must be talking about a case. Nesua means chuppah and didn't have Bia yet. And in that case, she gets chenek and not skila. So in any case, what we learn from this is that it's a quasi-state. The last thing we said was that once she gets handed over to the agents of the husband, she's no longer an arusa. She's not a nesua yet. She's enough of moving out of erisin that she doesn't get skila if she commits adultery. She gets chenek. Okay, so Sunday, Bezrat Hashem will discuss what happens if she gets transferred and then she wants to go back. Does she return to her erisin state? Or she
before
pursuing? She decides she wants to go back, whatever. She's not ready, or she doesn't want to. Or she doesn't want to absolve the marriage, but she doesn't. She goes back to the state of innocence. She goes back to her father's house. Does that mean she goes back to being completely in the state of Erison, or she's now in the state that she had before, this new state? We'll discuss that.
She's Mazan. Would she fall into the case of Isa?
That she gets killed?
Yeah.
She definitely gets killed.
Yeah. He would inherit it.
Oh,
She would still get like,
Oh.
let's say, Malone.
Does she get like dowry?
Still get everything that she came in to the.
Only the Erison part she completed. So that's a discussion. What we have to see further. That's so far it's been an opinion. According to Shmuel, the only thing that happens is the dowry. Technically, that she would. The answer is D. Not enough information yet. We have to see. We have to look through the sugya still. But so far, it seems like we hold like Shmuel, and some say once you did just the transfer over, would transfer over for dowry. But we'll see.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.